Welcome back to the FamilyDeal.com Sports Cave. So excited to have my good friend Dave Burkett of the Free Press here. I'm good, man. How's your summer been?
It's all right. Not hasn't quite started yet. 2 more weeks. Lions are done. I'm done. I get to relax a little bit.
For what, like 30 days, and then it gets going?
I always say my daughter's birthday is July 19th, and that's like my end of summer. Like birthday party, next week I go back to work. So
that's how hard this guy works. He's talking about a summer being about 40 days, if that even. Well, you know, it has been interesting. We have lots to talk about with you and the Lions. Obviously, OTAs are going on. We got minicamp this week. But Calvin Johnson comes into town yesterday. And Calvin Johnson is one of those guys who you got to love his efforts off the field, especially in his retirement. He comes back here. He runs tons of camps down in Atlanta and in Georgia, where he's from, and he still sticks around here and comes back. You happened to stop by the camp yesterday in Southfield and happened to pull a pretty juicy nugget from that conversation. Tell the people what you found.
Well, I don't think it should come as a surprise to anybody because, you know, this is sort of, I mean, look, if anybody that's followed the saga, I guess you call it, since he left Detroit, you know, he left and with the Lions, it just wasn't on the best of terms. I mean, he retired for, I think, the right reasons. You know, he didn't want to play anymore, didn't think he could play at the level he played at. The Lions asked him for some of his signing bonus money on the way out the door, perfectly within the right. I mean, that's, you know, the way the contract is structured, they could get up to $3.2 million back. And we don't know exactly what they got back. It was $1 million or more. It was a 7-figure portion of the bonus. But Kelvin, I think, like most players, you know, he didn't like that. They took money out of his pocket. They made him write a check out of his bank account. And you look at the rest of the league, other teams don't do that with their star players, don't do that with most players, frankly. Mm-hmm. And, you know, Kelvin, he's been estranged from the team, I guess, since then. And Rod Wood said a couple weeks ago that he wants Kelvin back in the mix. Kelvin said there's only one way to do it, you know, come up with the coin. And I don't fault him for that. I think he's well within his right to say that.
You've probably done enough research on this topic, particularly with other guys that have maybe had to pay money back or not pay money back. How common is it? And because I can totally see the Lions side of it. If it's in the contract and, hey, you left early, you know, part of a signing bonus, but at the same time, where do you think, you know, take your personal thought out of it for half a second and give me what you've seen around the league with it, and then go ahead and go back to...
Contractually, again, they're within their right to do that. You know, that's the way the contract is structured. A signing bonus is prorated over up to 5 years of the deal, so they could come back. His signing bonus was $16 million, I think, over 5 years, $3.2 million per year. But you look around the league, Tony Romo, the Cowboys weren't going to come and get his money when they cut him, or when when he was going to retire. Marshawn Lynch, when he retired the first time, the Seahawks didn't go after his money. I think it was Reggie Wayne signed with the Patriots, retired in camp. The Patriots let him keep his signing bonus. It's just, especially for star caliber, you know who you go after? You go after the Malik McDowells of the world. We see this story playing out now where you know, he had an issue off the field, got into an accident, was doing his thing. That's whose money you go after. You know, Titus Young, when the Lions were done with him. You don't go after Calvin Johnson's money. It just creates more hard feelings than it's worth.
A future Hall of Famer, you want to probably do what you can do to keep in his good graces, keep him around the program, because as you've seen with Barry Sanders,
they did it with
recently. They brought him back in as an ambassador to the franchise. Looks like they kind of want to do something similar with him. Do you think the Lions will budge on this? Is this one of those things? Because if Rod Wood's going out there publicly saying, we're going to do what we need to do to get him back in our good graces, and he says, ha, okay, give me Mike my money. I mean, is it as simple as that? Should it be as simple as that from the Lions' point of view?
He can be an ambassador for the team, and they can pay him whatever they want. So if it's $2 million that they made him pay back, why don't they just give him $2 million up front to be an ambassador? I mean, it says, I don't know how it's going to play out, but I do think that eventually the two sides will come together. I mean, as Rod said a couple weeks ago, you know, the Lions want him in the fold for when he goes into the Hall of Fame. That could be as early as 2021. That's when he's first eligible. I just think it makes sense for both sides. I mean, Kelvin's one of the greatest players in this franchise's history. You know, I think he does still like the Lions, too. It's not like he dislikes the Lions. I mean, talking to him, he went to a game last year, and talking to him yesterday, he was talking about the rookies being out there helping him at his camp, and, you know, how much it means to the fans and the kids that were out there. And he said, you know, they just want to see these guys do good. We all want to see these guys do good, you know. And so he's still talking like we. He still used that word. We want to see them do good, you know. So it's not like Kelvin hates the Lions. He just doesn't like the way things ended.
All right, Lions, come on, ball's in your court. Let's see what you guys can do with it. Speaking of this team, mandatory minicamp is here. mandatory is the word there, but of course these guys have choices to make. And you had an interesting article in the news today about basically whether or not Darius Slay and Damon Harrison Snacks should be there or not. They did skip out on the OTA session, which is optional.
Yep.
Mandatory is here. Do you think they show up on Tuesday?
I don't know. I got it. I guess I'm taking up for the players on all sides of things here. I mean, look, if their ultimate goal is to get a new contract or to get have their deal modified, I guess, in some way, which we saw happen with the Denver Broncos and Chris Harris. Look, it's not in the Lions' best interest, the team's best interest, to sign these guys to long-term extensions right now. They both have 2 years left on their deal. They're both at an age where maybe you don't want to go too far into the future, but they've both outperformed their contracts a little bit. So maybe the middle ground is some sort of modification of the contract. And if that's their goal, I think both players should stay away from the team. I know it's mandatory, but what happens? They face a maximum fine of $88,000. And Justin, they've already, they both had $250,000 workout bonuses in their contract for this spring, which they've both forfeited by not taking part in these workouts. So what's another $88,000? I mean, if the ultimate goal is to
You're committing,
make $2 million more
to the idea that
yes.
you're going to make more money in the long run than if you are now. Now, let me ask you this for most people at home who don't understand how contracts work and those types of things. Can the Lions come out and amend the final 2 years, add a year on, does it have to be something? Can they do whatever they want? Can they give them an extra bonus? How does that work when the two sides sit down and say, let's try to make a deal here?
No, they can certainly do just about anything they want. And I think the middle ground that you see teams do sometimes is they guarantee some incentives, or they make that part of the base salary. They do some little things like that where, I don't know the specifics off the top of my head of Darius Slay's bonuses. I think he has an escalator in there, but let's say that he has another $1 million he can make in Pro Bowl incentives, escalators, whatever. Well, maybe you just make it, instead of making $12 million this year, maybe it's $13 million that you guarantee him, and all sides agree to, maybe talk again after the season. I mean, there's a lot. Really, the team can do whatever they want, and frankly, the team can not budge if they don't want.
Either. Exactly.
And really, when it comes time for players to report to training camp, they have no choice but to report, because that's when the real fines start kicking in.
We know Le'Veon Bell sitting out an entire season, what he forfeited to go get his new deal somewhere else. It's not that bad, though. Slay and Snacks both want to play here in the short term, I would believe.
Neither player has spoken publicly about it, so I don't want to, speak for them. I mean, I think Darius Slay has been in town most of the time. Neither player has acted like they want the Antonio Brown, let me get out of town first, flight out tomorrow sort of deal. So, I think both players just want to be loved, taken care of financially, and both players, frankly, they want to stay healthy at this time of year. Damon Harrison, we should point out that he did this in New York too. He did not take part in all the off-season workouts in New York. He's a guy that maybe he just gets ready in different ways. Darius Slay, I think he's taken part in a lot of the workouts in the past, but from his standpoint, he does. Look, neither of these guys need OTAs either. They're both at the point in their career, and they're both at the point in this defense where they're going to be okay even if they don't show up this week.
What is the number one thing you'll be looking for during the mandatory minicamp? I mean, it's so far away from actual football. Again, it's helmets and shorts. It's like you and I could go out there and try to attempt these things, not at the level that they do, obviously, but still, it's not necessarily it's not necessarily real football.
Yeah.
So what do you look for? What should fans be gravitating towards? Whatever comes out of it?
Yeah,
I guess.
Look, it's fake football right now, but I will say this. I think, there's two things that we've been keeping tabs on this offseason. Number one is the offense. New offense with Darrell Bevell, Matthew Stafford, obviously, taking a leadership role, teaching this offense. It's important just to kind of see how that develops. Again, we don't know much because they're not in pads, but I think that's the important part from inside for the players to learn. This is when they can spend a lot more time at the facility. They can really dive deeper into the playbook. So I think that's the important thing, A. And then B, we haven't seen Kenny Galladay. We haven't seen Marvin Jones. There's been some guys that have, Trey Flowers, that have worked with the rehab group this entire time this spring. I don't know if they're going to be full participants or not in OTAs. Both Kenny and Marv look good running on the side. I talked to Marv briefly yesterday at Kelvin's camp. He seemed to be fine out there as well. If both those guys can get out and get some meaningful work in during mini camp, then I think that would be good for the offense as well.
There he is. Read his stuff at the Freep all year long, except for like the 40 days that he takes off to spend for his summer. Dave Burkett, thank you so much, man. I appreciate it. I'll see you on Tuesday and Wednesday and Thursday, because we got to cover fake football for a living, I guess. Coming up next, something I am excited about covering at the end of the month, Rocket Mortgage Classic coming to the Detroit Golf Club. There's a young man in this area hoping that he gets a chance to play with the pros. That story's coming up next here on the FamilyDeal.com Sportscade. Stay with us.